Hello and welcome to part 2 of our E3 2017 recap. At part 1 we obviously looked at the conferences from Microsoft, EA and Ubisoft. Now part 2 takes us to look at the Nintendo Treehouse as well as Sony's E3 conference, and more importantly as well, we also take in the PC gaming show as well. I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim, and this is part 2 of our E3 impressions.
Obviously E3 2017 is a massive festival, so we couldn't cram it all into one chunk, otherwise this would be a huge podcast and take forever for you to get through. So we split into two. Obviously in the first part we looked at the likes of E3, we looked at Microsoft, we took in Bethesda, and we took in Ubisoft. We're now on to the final conferences, and these are still just as important, no less, as we're on this episode going to be looking at both Sony, the Nintendo Treehouse, as well as the PC gaming show as well. Well, with the E3 2017 festival is certainly about its heavy hitters and about seeing the major trailers for games that are coming ahead, as well as the independent titles. This year we also saw a good focus for the PC gaming show. Now this is a smaller show and it doesn't actually take place in the main festival venue. Instead it takes place just down the road at the Ace Hotel Theatre, but despite obviously the smaller venue, the crowd was just as hyped to obviously see what was coming up ahead for the year ahead in PC gaming.
Obviously the PC gaming show had a lot more focus and a lot more emphasis on the indie game market. They still had some big games, like they showed off the extension of XCOM 2 called War of the Chosen, which started off the show on a high. I mean, we already talked about in the last episode that, we're big fans of the XCOM games. It's not really our normal sort of gaming genre, but it's definitely had its impact. War of the Chosen is, and XCOM is fighting against the Chosen, which is a trio of alien champions, the Assassin, the Hunter, the Warlock, and their sole goal is to eliminate XCOM. So obviously there's a lot of, different types of, services and factions that you need to kind of win over as well. You have the Reapers, and the Templars, so you're also facing off against the Lost, which look like mutated humans, pretty much like a little like alien zombies, but they really hate aliens because of the takeover as well.
Yeah, War of the Chosen is certainly adding a lot of new elements. I mean, this is one of the biggest DLCs that has been made available for any of the XCOM series. So you mentioned already about the Lost, who add this really new interesting dimension to it, because they are mutated humans, but the fact that they hate XCOM as much as they hate the aliens, so they'll attack anyone on the screen. It's not just the fact that you're going to have to be fighting the alien forces as well as the Lost. The Lost is this new environmental element that's been thrown in. You mentioned already we've got the Chosen, who are these alien champions, and this game's obviously going to see us bringing in new additional support from like the likes of the gas mask clad Reapers. We've also got like the Energy Sword World and Templars, and these factions are all going to bring their own elements to the game, and it makes us excited to obviously see this when this one comes out. This one's going to be out on August 29th. One of the other major aspects that we certainly like about the PC Game Festival is the fact it has such a focus on independent gaming. Certainly we saw Ooblets, which is kind of like Harvest Moon meets Pokemon. It was a little odd game, and it looked like something we'd get ourselves lost in, but feel very ashamed about it at the same time.
Obviously there was more than enough battle games, which shows how much combat and just in general fighting games are really in, like fighting as in like just swords and medievals and all sort of different genres, weapons and all that stuff. We got BattleTech, which is a modern turn-based game, which has multiple modes. There was a single-player campaign, and there's a multiplayer. Yeah, and this game is in their beta phase at this moment. You can sign up for it. We're going to have some links below that you can find all that stuff. Next up was Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord, where us live streaming saw everybody screaming for this game in the beginning. I personally know nothing about this game, but that's because I'm not much into these Mount and Blade or, all sorts of medieval fighting sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's another strategy game. It's one that they've been promising for about a year, and we expect to see some some proper demonstration. All they basically got was a trailer which kind of ticked everyone off. But no, certainly military strategic games were certainly at one of the forefront. You mentioned already that we've got BattleTech, which has been adapted from the tabletop game to the PC realm. We also saw the likes of Total War, Warhammer 2, which is going to be coming out and will enable players to obviously play as High Elves, Dark Elves, Lizardmen, as well as a fourth faction which is yet to be announced, and which, fingers crossed, is going to be the Orky Hordes. But at the moment, as of the certain time of this broadcast, we're still waiting for that to be confirmed. But I mean, it wasn't just all military strategic games which you kind of expect going into like the military, it's going into like the PC gaming, because I mean this is for years been to like the bread and butter of the industry. We also saw things like Tunic, which is kind of like a stylized version of Legend of Zelda with Link replaced by a tiny little fox.
Yeah, and this game is cute, it's charming, it's in this pixelated world where you need to explore, and it's beautiful. I mean, obviously there isn't a lot in the trailer. It's very short, but it's definitely something to look forward to. We also had, say, Players Unknown Battlegrounds, which had their first appearance, very brief appearance, in the Xbox conference, the Microsoft conference. And in this one, they actually got Brendan Green, who is a gamer-turned-developer, and is developing this game with the help of the community. And it holds up to 100 players. Right now he's working, obviously it's already on early access on Steam, so if that's a thing, if you haven't been playing it and this is your type of thing, maybe this is something you want to get into, obviously. You know, there's a lot of interesting upcoming features for this. You know, there's going to be replays, there's going to be weather settings, they're going to have 2 new maps set in like different environments. All things that I think this concept is very great. I'm not much of a multiplayer person, but I really see the appeal of it.
If you go to them homebase at monin.com, you can see a full coverage of all the games that are on there. Certainly one of the main titles though, and what we're certainly going to wrap up the PC gaming show with, is The Last Night. Now this had a quick look over at the Microsoft showcase, and here at the PC Gaming Show we got a much longer trailer along with an interview with Odd Tales developer with Odd Tales developer, who is currently seen with Raw Fury Games, who are the team behind Cathy Rain. I mean, Kim, this was one you were excited about.
Oh, I was excited about it. I follow Raw Fury Games ever since we played Cathy Rain, and obviously we reviewed that, and that link is going to be in the description below as well. This is a cinematic platformer. It's reminiscent of a game called Oddworld, which I guess is from Odd Tales. I don't really know this game, but I believe it is on sale. It was on sale on the E3 PlayStation Store. But The Last Night has real-time puzzles. It has cause and effects of things that you do. It's in a dystopian futuristic world where machines have officially become superior to humans. In all ways, they are intellectually and emotionally superior to humans. And, you know, this is about a young idealist who cannot enjoy the same things because of something that happened to him, and he's trying to change the world. I think it's very interesting. The world looks great. It looks fantastic. I believe that it might have some Metroidvania style to it. I'm not sure. Obviously, the footage didn't really show a whole lot more, and I'm hoping that we'll be seeing some more gameplay footage and all that stuff as the game gets into further development. But I do want to touch on one final game, and that is Griftlands by Clay Entertainment. They're the developers behind Don't Starve Together. They just released Oxygen Not Included. But Griftlands is a really change of pace in the fact of like a survival game that has been Clay Entertainment's bread and butter. And this game looks great. Obviously, they still have a very unique art style, and it's a very short trailer, a very short cinematic trailer, and it definitely begs to really, what's coming up for them. Pretty much that wraps up the show. I mean, we saw other lists of things. We're going to have that list at the bottom. I mean, there's games like upcoming that are going into beta, like Lawbreakers, and you have the currently available is the Summer Sideshow for Killing Floor 2, which is an event. They had the event announcement for it. So moving on, the next thing that happened that night was the Sony conference, and obviously that is my hype. and my domain because I own a PlayStation 4. And everybody's guess in this one would be going in is that they're going to highlight a bunch of exclusives, and they did. I think at this point, Sony really is all about the trailers. They had pretty much no one presenting the games. They just showed trailer after trailer after trailer for 1 hour. And I think they amounted to about 11 trailers or something.
Yeah, I mean, kicking things off, we started off with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. Now, as far as we're aware, the series' leading man, Nathan Drake, has retired, as we saw at the end of Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, and it's now falls to the series' favourite, Chloe, who memorably appeared in Uncharted 2 Amongst Thieves, and here now finally gets her own game as she sets out her own adventure across India to find the mythical tusk of Ganesha. This will see Chloe not only showing many of the same skills as Drake, but she will also have access to a lockpick and C4, which can be used on both her enemies as well as for puzzle solving. So while it is essentially more of the same in obviously the Uncharted sort of vein, it is also going to throw in a few new elements as well. And certainly the trailer gave us a lot to be excited for, with the India setting certainly looking absolutely stunning.
Yeah, and it kicking off with musical performance as well. Of course, between this and their next exclusive, we have Horizon Zero Dawn with their DLC coming out called The Frozen Wilds, where you play again as Aloy, and it's in a colder landscape. I mean, for fans of Horizon Zero Dawn, this probably is very exciting for them because it's new content that they can add to their collection and continue their journey. But of course, last year, one of the heavy hitters that we got a vague trailer for was Days Gone, and this time we had a more gruesome, full-length gameplay. Obviously, zombies are becoming a little overwhelming. They're a little overused. They're kind of everywhere. But, this time we see Deacon, who is our main character. We see him riding the motorcycle. We see him fighting animals. We see him fighting stuff. And my highlight was the zombie bear. That was incredible. I don't know what we have over here Game Warp with bears, but we love bears, and somehow, whether they're chasing people down or they're zombie forms, they're super appealing to look at,
Yeah, Days Gone, it brought back our memories of The Last of Us, except with perhaps a bit more of an action edge to it. The actual game itself is going to provide a great amount of freedom, and certainly the lush forest environment is a nice shake-up for post-apocalyptic areas. And as we saw, as Deacon obviously works his way through, there's different approaches he can take. He can use the Freakers, who are these sort of crazed zombie hordes. We saw scenes of him unleashing it on an enemy camp. And the whole game, it has a real nice flow to it, and it seemed very epic and very open in the world it was presenting, even if it could also be seen as sort of being on rails. But it's one of those games that we're very keen to get our hands on. It. The sheer amount of things happening on the screen at once without any sort of slowdown makes it very interesting to look at, and we're obviously very keen to see how it plays when the final game is released. Frustratingly, at the moment, we're still waiting on that release date.
Yeah, I mean, Sony did a really great job in presenting a lot of their key titles, but obviously some of them have been lost in the mix that we hope will show up in PlayStation Experience. But I think one of the heavy hitters and one of the ones that really had people excited was a remaster of Shadow of the Colossus, and this remaster looks beautiful. We're fans of Shadow of the Colossus, and they've had, a release before, but now they're having a PlayStation 4 release and remaster, and I just think this is something that has everybody really eager to go back to those nostalgic fights with gigantic monsters.
Yeah, I mean, Shadow of the Colossus has been one of those titles that's constantly made the top 100 games list of critics, and certainly when we had it back on the PlayStation 3, it was packaged with the original game Eco, which hasn't received a remaster treatment this time around, but the game has currently been remastered by Bluepoint Games, who previously worked on Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, so it's safe to say the game is in safe hands, and certainly looked absolutely stunning and looked really refreshed, the treatment that they've given it already, so we'll obviously be looking forward to seeing that when it arrives in 2018.
Yeah, and another big release obviously was that really got the audience very riled up was Call of Duty World War II. And, like, they're really trying to fight that, grab back the people who were taken over by Battlefield 1 to pull them back into another historic event. Like, people who like this sort of style, like to be in this setting, see all the weapons they can use, and, you know, be just in that scenario.
Yeah, Call of Duty World War II, it's really trying to claw back the audience, especially with the Call of Duty series going off into modern warfare. It's nice to see them getting back to their roots with World War II. Battlefield at the moment, as you mentioned already, currently has the foothold on World War I, so it makes sense that Call of Duty would go back to World War II. Again, this is a demo which showcased settings in both France, Germany, Belgium, England, and the Soviet Union, so it's going to take in a lot of different battlefields along the way, and it's looking like one that a lot of people are going to be very excited for, especially as the last time Call of Duty covered World War II was World of War, so it'd be nice to obviously see it get back to those roots.
It's really funny that in the middle of the conference, PlayStation decided to showcase their VR, and it's impossible to think that, you know, obviously, there are titles that we've already talked about, titles that, you know, we've already talked about Bethesda in the last episode, that, you know, we're not big fans of VR. We don't really believe in the technology. We don't believe on how much legs it has. I don't know how far it's going to go for now, but obviously developers are still really interested in making games for them. And so much as, you know, it feels like Final Fantasy 15, the VR project, has been given up now, because what we saw in this one was Monsters of the Deep, which is essentially fishing for weird monsters, Final Fantasy monsters. I'm not sure if...
It's just Final Fantasy fishing. That's all it is. It's kind of like when we had Sonic Adventure and Bob the Cat. His whole adventure was fishing for his frog. This is what we're getting. It's a fishing game in Final Fantasy.
And that's funny, because I just wonder, who is this audience, who is this targeted to, you know? Like, I don't know. I mean, this game seems like it's more suitable for, like, a family-friendly Nintendo Switch console or something, you know? But obviously this one did have its full, you know, games as well, like, although I haven't been tempted over yet. But I think Moss was a very interesting title with an adorable little rodent creature in this super charming world, and, I'm going to stop there because, I mean, there's really, you know, it is a very impressive looking game. However, I don't think it will be enough to pull people who aren't convinced over. Obviously, we have bigger titles to talk about, and God of War is the one that probably is one of the top trailers for this conference. In the Norse mythology now, and this time we're showing gameplay where I believe we will be playing as Kratos, but it feels like we can play at the same time with like the son as a companion as well. So it feels like there's, you know, a lot of depth, a very different story angle.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously trading out Norse mythology, where previous games obviously covered Greek mythology, and it makes sense because Norse mythology is essentially just as rich as Greek mythology, and it's interesting that we've had a sort of reboot for the series. Now Kratos is wielding a double-handed battle axe. He's got a son. He's sort of a little more older. He's a little more craggy than we saw him in the last time round. And here we see the fact he's got a battle axe that you can throw at enemies before he beats them to death with his bare hands. He can also resummon the axe to his hands, kind of like Thor's hammer, which was always one of the nagging issues when we saw him throwing the axe in the original gameplay, is that how does he get that back? Do I have to, like, walk over and get that? It's like, nope, it does come straight back to you when you need it. And that was really great. And the fact that we end with Jormander, the world serpent, who, according to legend, grew so large he encircled the earth. And really, this is what the PlayStation was meant for, to finally bring something like that to the screen. And it looked absolutely fantastic. So I'm looking forward to obviously seeing where God of War goes with this series, especially as it kept a lot of the ultra violence of the original games. It was throwing in some interesting elements and different villains as well, such as like the troll. Yeah, definitely plenty to look forward to with this one.
Obviously, there's just one more big title that ends the conference, but before that, I'd like to skim quickly over Destiny 2. There was some more footage on that. I felt it was still pretty brief. But also, there is Detroit Become Human by Quantic Dream. Quantic Dream is behind Heavy Rain and also Beyond Two Souls, which were two games you're either behind or you're not behind because they're more quick time events, kind of a choice-based adventure. This one enters into an android world where androids are put into a situation where they're fighting for their freedom, sort of thing. But, of course, the heavy hitter to end off Sony had to be, instead of their 30-second trailer from last year, we got an 8-minute gameplay segment of Spider-Man by Insomniac Games. And it is beautiful, thrilling, fantastic, really, really reminds me of playing Batman because of just how flexible it is in that world, in the fact that he can interact with everything, how he can use his web, how he can like maneuver around buildings in this, open world landscape.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the more exciting trailers of the game, and I think if any game's going to have you buy a PlayStation, this might be the one. Not only did we obviously see this gameplay that was able to go from both stealth to offensive fighting with great fluidity, we saw a great utilization of the environment around Spider-Man, and all the while he's running the usual sort of trademark quips there. We got to see villains like Kingpin and Mr. Negative. The actual gameplay trailer ends with this like destruction derby helicopter chase through New York, and all the while Spider-Man's like using his web ability to stop like collateral damage from happening. And Sony kind of shot themselves in the foot with this game, because at the end of the conference we have this sort of roundup trailer which shows footage from all the games, and it ends with footage of Miles Morales, who is, for comic book fans, is the current Spider-Man. He's taken over from Peter Parker. So we got this image of Miles, and he's photographing this helicopter that's now trapped in webs, and it was at the end of the conference that people are heading for the door while this is going on, and we got this major piece of footage. And all the while we're not now sure, is Spider-Man going to be the Peter Parker Spider-Man, or is it going to be the new Miles Morales one? Which in turn brings up a lot of different ideas. I mean, obviously if it's Peter Parker, we've got things such as like Mary Jane. If it's Miles Morales, we've got different abilities, because obviously Miles has got the ability to paralyze his opponents and has a slightly different suit. So the fanboy side of me was like kind of going into overdrive, like noticing these little things, and it's like, well, how does this all appear? Which world are we in? And are we going to see a game where is Peter handing over the suit to Miles? There's a lot of questions happening here.
I think a lot of the questions were minorly answered when they were on their live show the next day. They really emphasized the team of the Insomniac Games, which were there talking about Spider-Man, really talked about making their own story, and that this is, the ending scene is very significant of that is the Spider-Man that you're working with now. And this is an older Spider-Man, a more experienced Spider-Man. He really knows what he wants. But they're really going to try and mix up the formula, mix up the story so that it doesn't match up with movies, it doesn't match up with comics. It's just their own property, their own take of what Spider-Man is. And I think that that's a very gutsy thing to do. But I feel that they're going to succeed because this gameplay really is impressive. And probably one of the most impressive of the conference for myself, for all the conferences.
I mean, obviously, when it came to the Sony conference, a lot of people were expecting to see more Death Stranding. Certainly, at last week's E3, we got that first trailer. Then, at the Video Game Awards, we got the second artsy trailer, which again showed us Guillermo del Toro in video form, as well as Miles Magnuson doing his villainous turn. And everyone was expecting to see a little more from Death Stranding, but Hideo Kojima is actually still in development for the game and has chosen not to release anything further for the game at the moment. So, fingers crossed we see something a little bit further down the line at one of the other conferences.
There's always PlayStation Experience, so that's always something to hopefully have something reveal more by then. Obviously, this wraps up this Sony. Now, moving on. So Nintendo was the last company to wrap up the conference, and their event isn't exactly a conference event. They're more called Nintendo Spotlight, which moves into the Treehouse event. The Spotlight brought in a handful of, more than a handful of games, mostly for Nintendo Switch. It was pretty much a conference, a spotlight to motivate people that if you haven't bought the Nintendo Switch, maybe these titles addition to these popular franchises will make you want to get one.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously kicked off with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Xenoblade Chronicles was one of the key titles of the Wii U. Certainly, if you're looking at picking up a Wii U, it's one of the handful of titles that is definitely worth picking up. Now, we actually get the sequel, which had been probably one of the more requested things going into E3, and it features probably one of the worst dubbing tracks I've ever heard, as we follow a new group of heroes this time, including Swordsman, Rex and Prior, as they set out for the Land of Elysium. And seeing how this one is set for Christmas, we can no doubt expect to see more of this game in the months ahead. But from the trailer, it didn't give me anything to really be excited for, and that dubbing track is just pure awful, and I hope it comes with an original language track as well.
Obviously, there are other bigger, more cartoonish characters in the sense where we have something for Kirby, we have something for Yoshi, both with very joyful and very cute soundtracks that match up to who they are. They change up the formula a little, but, I mean, it's still very, very cute to look at. I'm a big fan. So I am pretty excited to see that. Obviously, the one announcement that did make it from our dream list is Metroid. Metroid is having a new game.
Yeah, Metroid Prime 4. This has been over 10 years since we had a proper Metroid title with Metroid 3 Corruption. So you can obviously understand why it's exciting to see Metroid finally making this Nintendo Switch debut. And yes, it's basically all we got was just a title screen and that's it. But the fact that we have new Metroid coming is always exciting to see. At the same time, I mean, the Nintendo would seem to be on this track where they would sell things just on an idea. We've heard that there's a new Pokemon RPG in the works, which that's it. We just know that it's in the works. There's no further details, although fans of Pokemon do also have the alternate versions of Sun and Moon, which will be coming out for the 3DS in November, when the Ultra versions are going to be released. We also see Pokken Tournament Deluxe, which is again one of those original titles for the Wii U, which sees you controlling the Pokemon in Tekken-style battles. The Nintendo Switch game, as with the Mario Kart upgrade, is going to see you being able to control new Pokemon. So we're going to see the likes of Caesar, Darkrai, and Juicerdai, and a number of other Pokemon that also look like someone just slipped on the keyboard. The bonus of this is the fact that two players are going to be able to compete on the same Nintendo Switch, and you're going to be able to control this with each of you having a Joy-Con controller. So, saving you about another $300 there or so.
Obviously, people with already the Nintendo Switch has probably already accepted the reality that they bought this Nintendo Switch for Zelda. And, of course, Nintendo wasn't going to go buy this without talking about their expansion pass, which has 2 upcoming DLCs, one which is coming at the end of the month, and the second which is coming out in the holiday. I think this is a pretty smart move in the sense that, you kind of need to make sure that the people that own it right now are, still have something to play, because I'm sure if you're a Zelda fan, you're already burning through the game, if you haven't already burned through it. But I think it's really odd to say this, but one of the most exciting titles, aside from, the final title, is a third-party developer game that's being moved over here, and that's Rocket League. I really think that Rocket League really should, on this type of console, really can make a presence.
I think it was only a matter of time before we saw Rocket League. It started off on PlayStation, it came across to Xbox, it blew up both consoles. This is just the juggernaut that continues to roll on, so the fact it's now on Switch is just inevitable, because this is like the quintessential party game at the moment. Even if you don't play video games, you can pick up and play this game. It's very simple, and the fact that it seems almost designed with its simplicity for the Nintendo Switch. And I think this is going to be the sort of game that when you have parties, you're going to bring out your Nintendo Switch, you're going to bring out your Mario Kart, and you're going to bring out Rocket League. So I think it's going to do well on the Nintendo Switch, like we've seen it obviously do with both PlayStation and Xbox as well. So
obviously, the heavy hitter of the show had to go to Super Mario Odyssey, because they followed it up with Treehouse with 45 minutes or something of levels and just how the game plays, and it's an interesting concept. I don't know if you think so, but I mean, you got Mario in his hats, and his hat is kind of Cappy, and Cappy can possess all sorts of things, and, he can turn into Bullet Bill if he wants. He can, do all these funny things while running around the city, and there's all sorts of different coins. The coins actually is currency that they can use in that specific world to, mod yourself for certain quests to, like, have new costumes, have new whatever, I think it's really cute, obviously this is just from the trailers, also from watching the gameplay that was going on, but the highlight of the trailer had to be, like, the Mario T-Rex is so amazing. I just love monsters so much.
Really random trailer. I mean, while this is obviously going on, you've got, like, this swing band singing about being your one-up girl, which I guess Kim's got a Valentine's Day slogan sorted now, so it's, it's sort of like, oh, Mario can now possess things, and it's sort of like, yay. It's like, why can we just... What is it with Mario and the fact that we just have to constantly have gimmicks now? That we can't just have a standard platformer. It's the same with Sonic, as we saw with Sonic Forces, which ironically felt really flat, especially when you put it against Sonic Mania, the 2D revival game that is being independently produced. And I was like, we're looking at this, and it's like, yes, he can turn into a tank, he can turn into a T-Rex, and he can turn into different enemies. And whenever he does turn into an enemy, it instantly has the Mario mustache. So you see like a Goomba with a Mario mustache, and it's like, yeah, that's funny, but it doesn't make me want to buy this game. Yes, it's Mario in the City, but I don't know. It just seemed a bit of a mess.
I don't know. I mean, I think we're a little bit split on the Nintendo conference in general, just because, I mean, I'm easily convinced. Like, Nintendo is kind of like that nostalgic kind of console, and I can see why, like, as a nostalgic console, I'd like things to stay the same, but at the same time, if they can make things work, I remember finishing this console and I was like, oh my god, if they just had, like, a Mario and Luigi follow-up, that's all I really want. I just want to turn on my DS and play Mario and Luigi again. And outside of the conference, they actually did have a trailer for Mario and Luigi. I think it's like Bowser or something. I forgot the actual name. Superstar Saga. This is going to be called Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga Bowser's Minions. So, I mean, definitely I would play that game in a heartbeat, because Mario and Luigi has been a very strong staple of the Nintendo consoles of late. And I don't know. I mean, Super Mario Odyssey is interesting as a concept, I think, but I still need to be convinced. I don't know. I mean, from all these trailers, has it kind of bought you over to want to pick up a Switch?
No. That's the long and short of it. Yeah, I mean, I liked Yoshi. I thought that was very cool. It had a very Little Big Planet vibe to it, which was great. And the fact that you could, like, flip the environment, and the fact the whole environment looks handmade. These sort of things make me want to pick up a Switch. Things such as, like, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Those are the sort of games I like looking at. I mean, Super Mario Odyssey, it's a gimmicky Mario game. It's not doing anything for me. If I was to pick up a Switch, as I said, it's for something. Give me something that is going to show me something different. Something that I've not seen before, and something that's going to inspire me as a gamer. And I think so far, out of a very bland presentation that was the Nintendo Spotlight. I mean, they now turned like phoning it into an art form, as they basically have these pre-recorded packages ready to go.
I mean, okay, look, I mean, to be honest, compared to last year where they just showed Legend of Zelda for like an hour, I mean, this is a step up. You have to admit that. But at the same time, has it convinced me to get a Switch? I don't know. I'm still not too convinced yet. I still feel like there's not enough games. And if they continue the way they are going right now, I feel like I'm going to fall into that Xbox camp where I just kind of miss out on it. And I'm like, I won't be missing much,
Yeah. It's kind of sad being a retro gamer, and you remember back in the times when Nintendo made sensible consoles, and the fact that Nintendo beat out Sega in the Great Console Wars, and that this is what they did. They won the war, and they turned into this, and it was basically Sony and Microsoft that would lead the console revolution. And it's kind of sad, really, the fact that makes you wonder if Dreamcast had worked out, had it not turned into this tombstone for Sega, certainly with their console sort of branch, that would we still be in this position where we feel that Nintendo are just making gimmicks now rather than consoles? But I suppose it serves as that entry point to non-gamers, and that eventually they would go onto the consoles and stuff. But for myself, Nintendo Switch, it's a nice piece of kit, but there's certainly nothing there making me want to hand over the weighty price tag for this just yet.
So obviously, as final thoughts for E3, what conference stood out to you? What game stood out to you? What were your thoughts, overall view of it?
2017, as with last year, it was just such a jam-packed conference. It's like the fact that there's so much stuff there, we had to split this show into two. It's really sort of a sign of how packed this year was, and the fact we were also with developer-led conferences, something that's always kind of a worrying sign, because let's face it, developers, they're happy hiding under their desks and working by light of laptop rather than being out having to socialize with people and sell their products. They normally rely on people for that. So it was nice that in fact we had developer-led presentations and nothing felt awkward, everything felt fun, and the overwhelming themes of unity as well as getting back to the joy of gaming and the experience, that those two overwhelming themes throughout the whole conference really shone through. And I think that looking to the year ahead, there's certainly a lot to look forward to as we go obviously into 2018 and beyond.
Yeah, I feel like one of the main things that made these conferences feel, maybe I wouldn't use jam-packed would definitely be how I'd word certain conferences, aka Microsoft. That was super jam-packed. Like, I can't remember half of the titles without looking at a list or anything, you know? But I mean, most of the conferences stayed concise, and they stayed, truthful to whatever theme they wanted to keep to. Obviously, some failed and some succeeded better. But in the end, if you look at it, it's a lot of rehashing from last year, because there was a lot of big surprise announcements last year that this year was really just giving us an extended footage of what was from last year. I can't say obviously it's a lot to be excited about, because it's nice to see that these projects are moving forward instead of like Scalebound this year that just, got canceled and you don't even get to see any of it, So I think that the conferences did well. I think 2017 was okay. There was a lot of titles to look forward to, but I still feel like a lot of these titles are going to show up in the 2018 E3.
Yeah. I mean, did you have a favourite conference going into it? Certainly for myself, Ubisoft once again got the conference of the festival for myself. I thought it was a very strong conference throughout. It was very fun, it was very quick paced, and even though it was obviously a change in format from previous years, where it was just more sort of trailer focused, and we obviously had a couple of presentations here and there, it just felt like a really fun presentation to be part of.
I think that if you were to talk about conferences, I would be kind of a little tied on the sense that I really like Sony, but I also really like the first conference that really appealed to me this time was Ubisoft, because it presented such strong games, and even like the atmosphere of the whole show was really nice, and there was a lot of hype, and it's very, Sony is expected to do well, whereas other conferences, there's always a question as to what they're going to present, how they're going to present it, But no, definitely for me, it would be on par for Ubisoft and Sony. I can't choose which one.
Well, that brings us to the end of our coverage of the E3 2017. We hope you've enjoyed listening to both parts of this show.
So thanks so much for watching. If you did watch the E3 impressions and if you did watch the E3 conferences, and please share with us what games stood out to you, what conference stood out to you. Even would you pick up an Xbox X? What are your comments on the Nintendo Switch? Whether do you have one? How is it for you? What are you expecting? Obviously, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Our home base is thatmomentin.com. We have a lot of game reviews over there that you can check out. There is gaming news and releases over on our Twitter and Facebook that we update every single day, and that handle is at GameWarPodcast. With that same handle, you can also find us on Instagram, where you can find all of our current gaming obsessions and a lot of other fun things that we put together, as well as you can also find us on twitch.tv/GameWarpPodcast, where we'll be streaming as regularly as we can. So thank you so much again. Till next time, bye.